I don't think there's a likelihood that any other city could be taken over. I don't think that you have the same constellation of indoctrination, funding, control of territory, and control of fighters that all came together in Marawi at a time when Islamic State was still well established as a focal point and as a reference point in the Middle East. So it's going to be small. That's why I think we're more likely to see bombing attacks in urban areas to say we're still here. But they're not. I don't think there's any way you're going to be able to see another town taken over. I don't think we will see anything for a while. I think there's going to have to be a period of regrouping and so on. So I think it'd be really hard to plan an attack so quickly. I don't think we've seen lone wolf attacks of the European variety taking place or of the US variety. And it would be, I would think it would be more difficult to inspire such attacks now than it would be in the past. So I would expect that they would still be undertaken by a group of some kind, even if there are only one or two people involved, but it would still be one or two people who were linked to an existing group. One of the things particularly to think about are the children and younger siblings of people who were killed. And if you think about the government saying that the number of terrorists slain in Marawi was 800 to 900, then you've got a lot of children who are potentially the next generation. The problem is, how do you know that all 800 people killed were really terrorists? Maybe there weren't as many as 800 terrorists killed, but there are a lot of kids who are going to be very vulnerable to recruitment and involvement in radical organizations. And as I say, watch the reconstruction of Marawi and watch what happens in terms of resentment in evacuee centers if people don't go home quickly. And now that's in real question. I think that we may have to revise threat scenarios if in fact we don't have an ISIS central that some of the remnants here can relate to. But I think what you have to accept is that this ideology that supports violent extremism is not going to go away anytime soon. First of all, let me say that I think the idea that the Philippines would ever become a big safe haven for lots of people from ISIS in the Middle East was probably overblown, because most Arabs are going to stay in the Middle East somehow, and most people from other parts are going to find safe havens closer to home. So the people who are likely to seek shelter in the Philippines are people from Southeast Asia who might have real difficulty going back to their own countries. Malaysia is one example where you've got a very vigilant special branch, and you know those people are going to be arrested the moment they set foot in the country. So they might have an interest in finding a safe haven in Mindanao instead. For someone like Bahrum Shah, I think it would depend on whether he saw a likelihood of being able to revive the pro-ISIS coalition in some form. And I don't know the answer to that. I think it's equally likely that he might try to go back to Indonesia and take a lot of these pro-ISIS cells and try to turn them into some more professional terrorist organization. There's an issue about whether there still is as much support in the young Muslim public for the leadership of the MILF, which everyone had assumed would be basically in charge when the new entity was created, as there was before Marawi. Because one of the things that Marawi did was to put in very stark contrast the difference between the aging leadership of the MILF and the kind of young, charismatic appearance even of the Mautes. One person said, all you have to do is look at the difference in hairstyles between Abdullah Maute and El Haj Murad. That's it. Let me just say, I think that the MILF leadership has done a superb job of leading that organization and of trying to use the democratic means available to it to push for a political goal that will both serve its interests and maintain the sovereignty of the Philippines. But if nothing happens, and there isn't the support and the push from the central government, then I think they're going to lose credibility in that, within the population more generally, if they can't deliver on what they've been promising for years and what they hoped Duterte could deliver. If there were a Bangsamoro entity, and if the peace process were fully implemented, that would solve about 30% of the conflict in Mindanao. But 30% is better than nothing. And I think there are real costs to not having a peace process when the MILF remains the largest and best armed organization, and when there's been such commitment by the leadership to a nonviolent solution. Well, if you, I think it opens up the possibility for new groups to emerge. New and more charismatic groups to emerge, and that's not good.